everyone, guess what? You, right there. We're here with Bryan with a Y and Ryan, which is like Ryan
Also
with
with a
a
Y.
B. Yes, also with a Y. They're from Doomsday Profit. First, you guys should absolutely check them out. It is sludgy, fucking madness. Uh, Honestly, kind of in the vein of like I Hate God and Crowbar and all those wonderful bands that you and I both love. Um, so, guys, first, thank you for taking time out of your night and coming to hang out and chat.
Thanks for having us, Tom.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Hell yeah. Second, speaking of I Hate God, uh, I got I received a poster from one of their shows in Germany today, and I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
holy fuck. My wife's
Perfect
like,
timing.
you're lucky. I'm like, I don't know if I'm lucky, but that's cool as fuck.
Hell yeah.
All right, so if we can't do this, you got away. There she fucking goes already. Like you son of a bitch. Um, so Doomsday Prophet's not very old, is it?
No, I still kind of feel like we're getting our bearings and finding our voice.
Mhm.
I guess technically it's been about 5 years now, since we got started. Um, Going on six really from our first show.
Yeah,
But obviously there was a couple of years of pandemic in the midst of that, so that'll slow things down for a while.
It really
Um,
skews the fucking timeline too.
I know, right? It feels
yeah.
like I feel like we're getting through all of the like early band stuff, finding a really solid lineup that is going to work for the haul. Knock on wood, um, and really kind of figuring out where our sound lies in the midst of all of these great sludge bands and all the other things that we love, from heavy psych rock to crust punk to death metal to you name it.
Yeah. Fuck that death metal stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
Hell yeah.
What, I'm with you. I think the cool thing about heavy music is like you, especially when you get into more like independent and underground stuff, like there's so many different influences mixed
Mhm.
in. And to be honest, it can go either way, right? It can be really fucking cool or it can be really fucking terrible. Uh, and I feel like what you guys do is really fucking cool. You know,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've listened through obviously I've listened through the three singles you guys released this year and then the split last year with Smoke. And I did not I couldn't get past those like six songs that you guys did. So I didn't get the 21 release yet. But like those fucking six songs are like holy shit, they're so fucking good.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I obviously we always hope that whatever we're doing next is better than everything that came before it. So, you know, we still like all the songs on In Idle Orbit, but I think we're also feeling like that was kind of a moment in time where we were getting going as a band, and we've moved past it.
Yeah.
Um, not that we've abandoned it by any means, but yeah, it's great that you're listening to the new stuff and finding something to like in that, because that's where we're heading.
I
That's
think
what's now.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's where bands are, you always want, we release something, fucking please enjoy that, which, you know, I absolutely understand, being a musician, being a fan of music, you want to like the newest stuff better than the last stuff. But like thinking about like long term,
Mhm.
longevity of a band, there are those bands where you go, okay, this is the era where I was introduced to them, and
Mhm.
that will always be, my favorite.
Well,
So
and sometimes some songs are just magic. They just
yeah,
hit people for some reason. I mean, look at a band like Metallica, and like Master of Puppets is a great song, but why is that the one that you know sticks the hardest? Compared to anything off Ride the Lightning, which I prefer as an album. But just like certain things, just the right timing, the right moment, the right people getting introduced to it. You get all those things together, and it just becomes the song that, you'll never get out from under the shadow.
Right. Yeah. No,
Uh,
and that, especially a band like Metallica, because they've had, those first like four albums were second to none. And you talk to, I'll say 90% of people, and that is, that's the era. Because that was like, I think in all of our minds, like peak Metallica. And once in a while you get someone that's like, well, I don't know, I like the Black Album, and I'm not against that. It's just not my thing. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
But I
So
mean, even there, you have Enter Sandman, you have Fuel off of Reload, that like those songs stuck better than anything else on those albums. And you know, there's a reason Enter Sandman gets played in at sports arenas and stuff, because it's a banger. Like
yeah,
it's just there. It's ubiquitous now. And if you went and saw Metallica and they didn't play Enter Sandman, even if you only liked, the first four albums, I think you'd be a little disappointed.
not me.
Not you? Okay. Well,
Nah. If like I say that, I've seen him a couple of times. And every time I see him, I'm like, I just want to hear like this era.
yeah.
And now they're 60-ish. And the last time I saw them, I again went in with that mindset and they played, and I was like, you know what? I'm so glad they're not playing that era because they're not those people anymore.
Hmm.
It's really interesting, at least I find it interesting what we did in terms of our single release schedule because we kind of consciously released them in a semi mini era order. Like the first three songs were much closer to the In Idle Orbit era. I mean, Doomsday Prophet and Monument to Nothing are actually some of our older songs, but they just didn't make it onto In Idle Orbit or The Split, but they made it onto this one. So we released kind of that group of three, and then there's kind of a middle transitionary phase. Those are Stargazer, South Will Sink, and Spirits. And then the songs that have yet to be released, that's kind of the further progression of where we've gone as a band. So it's not we're not releasing the songs in the album order, but or yeah, but we are
Yeah.
releasing them in kind of more of a phase
Yeah.
order to
Kind of
show
semi chronological,
semi chronological kind of highlight
where
our
when the full album is
yeah.
out in total, it's a different order because it's based on what we thought sounded best.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we kind of almost viewed it as three EPs and actually thought about releasing it that way, just because, like Ryan said, the first, Doomsday Prophet, Monument to Nothing, Drive Into the Sun were kind of older songs that we've played in every era of the band with all three drummers that we've had now. And then, kind of the middle transitional period when we were starting to write with David on drums, and then kind of the most recent three coming out last. And so it's kind of fun listening back to it now, and I don't know if anybody else will pick up on it, and it's not for me to say, but it is fun to kind of see how our songwriting and our elements have evolved, and then knowing the stuff that we're starting to work on now with our new drummer Nat in the fold. He brings a different flavor to everything too, so it's sort of
Mhm.
like, okay, now we're going to have a whole different variety of influences coming to bear. And you know I don't know, I feel like, I'm glad we don't have the burden of a hit yet. No,
You
nobody's
know,
expecting anything from us, so
but at the end of the day, though, like I, I think as a musician, a hit would be nice, but it's also better to like have people around you that you want to create with.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, obviously, you guys know because you just mentioned it, drummers, they're a very integral part of the band, but
mhm.
also sometimes they're hard to fucking keep.
They
Yeah.
are a stereotype for a reason.
Well, I mean, and honestly, it's hard to keep a band going. I mean,
Yeah, it's very true.
they say one of the hardest things about starting a band is just finding other people to play in it and make your schedules line up so you can practice semi regularly.
Hmm.
So we've been pretty lucky in that respect. And when David came on board, he's got a busy work schedule. He's got several other bands he's in, probably most notably the black metal band Antiquity, who are kind of taking off locally and regionally here. So he wanted to focus on that, which is really his creative baby. And so we kind of all knew that was coming at some point. But Nat's really jumped into the fold and
Hmm.
livened up some of the older songs, and given us a lot to work with on some new things that hopefully we won't be sitting on for too long.
Yeah, it's
Right
really been
on.
interesting to see how the songs have changed a little bit just by virtue of a different person behind the kit. It just kind of take on a new life. So yeah, I think some of the older stuff that we've been playing has been freshened up a little bit and has taken on kind of a tone that we hadn't yet explored. So it's kind of cool to
That
see just music as an evolution
Mm-hmm.
depending on
yeah,
who's playing it.
that's a really like a valid point. I think that maybe not a lot of people know, right? Because at the end of the day, like what is a band? A band is a marriage, and that
Hmm.
relationship that you have amongst each other allows you to create this era of music. It's like a sum of everything that's going on, your creative space, your mental space, your physical space, like everything. So you change out that one person, whoa, you
Yeah,
know.
the chemistry
Yeah.
changes. And, I mean, there's a few different ways to run a band. There's definitely bands that have sort of the one creative driver who just tells everybody else what to do. But that's never been how
Megadeth.
we yeah, that's never been how we operate. I am not talented enough to write full scores for everybody and say, okay, this is what you play and this is exactly how it is. And I wouldn't want to either, because I think part of what makes it fun is seeing what everybody else brings to the table.
Hmm.
Yeah. Huh. That's a good point too, right? Because someone else brings something and you're like, holy shit, I didn't even think you could do that. Like, that's
Yeah.
fucking cool.
Yeah. I mean,
What
sometimes I'll sketch out bass parts, and for me, it's all just like, hey, let's ride the root note. And then Ryan's like, yeah, I'm not going to play that. He wants to keep
like
it more interesting, and it always ends up better for it. So,
yeah.
um, but it's one of those things like, we try not to be um, overly prescriptive in how we want each other's parts to turn out. And um, that kind of creative push and pull of, I don't know, this isn't heavy enough, this isn't mean enough, versus this is boring, and you're just sitting on the thing for too long. um, that kind of feedback and workshopping it, I think, is really, I, I'm sure it's not for everybody, but for us it is part of what makes the creative process enjoyable, is kind of pulling from different directions and giving each other feedback. And you know, not always what you want to hear about something you've worked on. And, you bring a riff and you're like, oh, this rules. And everybody's like, no, it doesn't.
Like, oh fuck.
but, uh, but then, when you find something and, and I'm sitting across the room and Kevin's like, yeah, this one's got the juice. Then, um, you just feel like, yeah, I did it. I impressed my buddies. Uh, and now we're going to make something even better.
Hell yeah. That's gotta be, it's fucking an ego check too. When you're like, dude, this thing is awesome, and everyone else is like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do? Well, we figure out whatever the next step is.
Hmm.
So, with you guys releasing these three singles, is there an album on the horizon?
Yeah, we will have a full album out September 19th. But the singles that we've been dripping out over the past few months are all just kind of building up to that.
Hmm.
We wanted to play the algorithm game, and try to use the album to and the songs to start building on our fan base, and kind of advertise the shows and feed that cycle. Um, but we also didn't want to keep the people who do care about the band from we didn't want them to have to wait another year and a half to hear new stuff. So we kind of just got it out. And one of the nice things about doing it independently is we don't have to fit the release calendar mold that a label is trying to organize all the other releases that they have to deal with. We get to just prioritize ourselves. And then the kind of open secret about it is that the full album's actually been available on Bandcamp all along.
Since
Um,
January.
yeah,
Oh
Yep.
fuck.
all the other tracks that aren't officially released to streaming yet are available as bonus tracks. So if you buy it on Bandcamp, you get the whole thing right off the bat, and then each month a new one goes public.
Oh shit. Okay. Now I got to go to fucking Bandcamp. Damn it.
Or wait till September. You know.
Yeah, everything
Yeah.
will be streaming in full on September 19th. But yeah, if you want to hear the full thing, Bandcamp is how to do it.
Hell yeah. So are you guys doing physical media with the September 19th release, or is it just digital?
We're planning to do a small run of some combination of CDs and tapes. Nothing too major, but enough for people who like to have something to hold. To have something to hold.
Yeah. To have and to hold.
Yep.
That's, I'm a big vinyl guy. Like,
We
that
are
is,
too. It's
I
just it's such a very high upfront cost that I mean maybe we'll
it's not too bad.
Well, it depends how many you're doing. I think
yeah.
our looking at where we can do 1 or 200. That kind of small run is, um, at that point it's like $15 per at cost, which I don't want to sell them for that much more than that. Just I know vinyl's gotten super crazy, and now you go to the record store and stuff's like 40, $50 sometimes, and it's
Yeah, but
unreal. But
it's like if we look at like the where inflation is, and I understand not wanting to sell it for much more than like 15, right? And I would never like advocate for, well, get a $50 record. Like, fuck no. I don't
yeah,
want to pay $50 for a record. But if you can do it for 30, people will happily pay 30 a record.
oh yeah. I mean, and I don't think we're not trying to be Fugazi or anything. And even if you account for inflation, Fugazi's $5 shows are like $30 now. So
Yeah,
um, I it is one of those dilemmas though, because I remember it wasn't that long ago that I'd go see a punk or a metal show with $40 in my pocket. I'd get in, have a couple beers, and leave with two shirts or two records. And um, it
not
just feels
anymore.
like with the way everything's gone, it's hard to leave the house without losing $100. And um, so I do try to be cognizant of that, and not feel like we're trying to you know jack up the price on everything. And we go back and forth on that a lot, trying to figure out what's reasonable and fair, but also what puts gas in the van.
Which is, that for a band is a really important thing.
Hmm.
This is a conversation that comes up often because I think a lot of musicians rather, when they get into playing music, at least initially, they're like, dude, I just want to play music. I don't give a fuck about the money. I just want to play music. But then when it becomes a band, I mean, essentially you're running a fucking corporation. You have a business that you have to run, that you have to make money at. And again, I'm not saying go out there and charge $50 a fucking record.
Yeah,
You you don't even have to charge 30, but for it to be worth it for you guys, even at 25 would be probably where you as low as you'd want to go, you
yeah,
know. And you can get them. You can get them for 15. I mean, shit. I'm waiting on a quote for some records right now, but I think they're going to be 11 or 12
yeah. That's not bad.
now. So they're out there.
Yeah,
Do it. Do it.
we'll see.
I need a vinyl to buy. Come on.
We've got the split with Smoke. We're still sitting on a handful of copies of that one.
All right. I mean, that'll have to do, I guess.
Well, it sounds like we
Uh,
can count on at least one pre-order, Ryan. So
Yeah. All right.
add that to
yes.
the calculations.
Yeah.
I'll figure that into the financials.
Fuck yeah. At
Yeah,
that
Ryan is
rate.
our de facto accountant and analytics guru and all that. So he very graciously handles most of the business side of Doomsday Profit. While I just try to live up to the punk ideals of my 16-year-old self, and um, don't always succeed.
So would your 16-year-old self punch you in the fucking face for where you are right now?
I don't think so, but I think he'd have some questions.
That's that's fair.
You
That
know,
is
I think
absolutely fair.
I think my life has turned out pretty good, but I do try to like keep in touch with that like, self-righteous prick sometimes just to be like, you know, I wasn't wrong about everything. There were some things I was spot on with, and you gotta keep in touch with that part of yourself too. I think Dow's last record, from what I was reading about it and from listening to it, was kind of like them grappling with some of those same things, like you know, growing as a band and getting to the point where like you're not really DIY anymore, and what do you compromise in that idealism of your youth, and especially growing up in punk scenes and DIY hardcore and metal scenes, and having these really strong ideals about the way things should be, and then having to grow into the way things actually are, and that dissonance that you get in your mind, and feeling like I know there's a better way, but I can't force myself into a rut, and I don't necessarily want to live like a monk and go completely off grid. Like that's not for everybody. It's certainly not for me. Mad respect for anybody who can do that and make it work. But
Yeah,
um, yeah, uh, it's one of those things. You got to figure out where the compromises are and where
that
you
balance.
can't. And yeah, yeah. So those kind of like reckonings with my younger self and my own idealism, um, is I think it shows up in the music.
It's funny you say that because I think all of us, right through our teenage years, what are we doing? We're fighting against whatever we're fighting against, right? Corporations and this and that, because what do? They run their business and it's all about money, fuck the people, blah blah blah. And uh for a band, I think there's a lot of opportunity to honestly run your fucking business the way you want to run your business. You know, you grow it to a point where you have to hire staff, but the instead of the band hiring a manager, the band is the manager and just delegates all of these other things. I think
Mhm.
that's where a lot of bands really fucking miss out on the opportunity is, oh, we need a manager. Well, no, you don't. You need essentially an executive assistant,
Yeah,
someone to answer emails and answer phone calls, and then a PR company to do all the
yeah,
PR shit, but it's making your own way.
Hmm.
yeah. And yeah, I think that's we certainly sent demos out to labels and things, and um, nothing really stuck this time around. But I think we were all okay with that. It was sort of like we're going to self-release it unless somebody's really stoked on it and they want to jump in and partner with us. Um, it certainly wasn't our decision at the exclusion of working with a label. We'd love to, but assuming that the vibes are right, that it's a partnership, that we
Yeah.
feel they're supporting us and we're supporting them, and we're fans of the stuff they put out. That's a big part of it. I don't want to um, just kind of sell to the highest bidder, or the first person to come along and offer to subsidize it. We'll
I'm
make our
I'm
own
gonna
way as long as we can.
I'm gonna kind of argue that for just a minute, right?
Hmm.
Like, um, we've talked about I Hate God, and the conversations with like, Jimmy Bauer really like opened my eyes to a lot of things with the band. They were signed to a label and the label ended up burning them. So they were like, you know what? Fuck you. We're gonna record it, we're gonna own it, and we will license it out to
Hmm.
the highest fucking bidder. But at that point, you have 100% control on everything with the music, how you're marketed, like literally everything. And I think people are moving more in that direction, right? There once was a time where labels were you had that. I don't want to say you had to have a label to make it, but that was 90% of the fucking artists, that's what they did.
Hmm.
And we are quickly moving so far left of that where people are like, fuck, I'm starting my own booking agency. I'm starting my own label. I'm doing my own thing. I will license my music, but I own everything. Like that's a that's the fucking wise move, I think, for any band, especially younger bands.
Oh yeah, no, I think finding that kind of relationship. I mean, we've self-managed all of our recordings, working with a friend of ours who's a producer and engineer out here in North Carolina, and yeah, I mean that kind of situation where you know you maintain ownership of the masters and you're working out an agreement for distribution and manufacturing and promotion where it's shared. And they're licensing for X number of copies for X number of years or territories or whatever. Yeah, that's great. We'd love to do that. But I think at the same time, like it wouldn't make sense for us to try to do that necessarily with a label that has no idea what to do with a band that sounds like us, or
Yeah, well, I so
where we hate
I agree
everything
with you.
else they've put
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. I agree with that, but those aren't the labels that are going to want to license you anyway.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the people who want to license you are going to be familiar with you, are going to be familiar with this style of music. And that's, it's Universal's not going to be like, sure, we'll fucking license your music. Like, no, why? What, why the fuck would they do it? But, then you're looking at like Century Media. Oh, maybe we will, or whoever, which is cool. But that I think to get into that position, the important thing for a band is just to be out there and fucking grind as the band and
Hmm.
let them come crawling to you. Don't fucking, don't I don't know. Again, this is like you were saying, these are my teenage fucking ideologies. I will make my own fucking way, and if
Hmm.
people want me, they have to come to me, to make it happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much where we're kind of at. I mean,
Yeah,
the yeah, that's kind of our trajectory in that sense, for sure.
that's the way to go. I mean, I will
Yeah.
fucking preach that 100%. Like, yeah, especially like, you guys got a good sound. It's
Thank you.
fucking, I mean, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't have you on the show. Uh, but
I would hope not.
Yeah.
yeah, I was, funny. I was talking to someone, they're like, hey, um, so and so likes what you do. And I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. It's like, oh, I think I can get him to do this thing for you. And I'm like, okay, it's someone that's not in the heavy like music realm at all. Like
Mhm.
they're more in the hip hop side. And
Hmm.
I'm like talking to my wife about it, and she's like, yeah, but what do they want you to do for them?
Mm.
Yeah.
Like that's a fair point. I don't want to get diddied, like I'm not into all that shit. Um, and I think like anyone, you want to listen to and talk about things that you're passionate about. And
Sure.
heavy music has always been a fucking passion of mine.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too, is like we have, I mean, I think we're fans of all different genres of music. I love indie rock. I love Americana. I love a lot of hip hop. Um, and if it made sense to do a collaboration with a country band or with a rapper, I'd be into it. But I'm not sure, right off the bat, it's not like it automatically makes sense.
Right.
Um, I'd say the same about metal bands, frankly. Like, if we're friends and there's a mutual appreciation for what we're doing and we have a great idea, then I'm all about it. But I'm not trying to go out there and just, you know, get a feature or a cosign just for the sake of it. And, again, with playing the algorithm game, I know those like featuring the singer from this band or feature, these sort of crossover things work really well on streaming because you get on both things and the playlists are all about it. But if it just sounds like something thrown together, you're just back in that like major label novelty release kind of thing all over again, where you're just trying to appeal to lowest common denominator instead of doing something that feels really authentic.
Yeah. Well, and that's that's a valid point too, right? Like you when you get into music, you want to do something where you feel creative in your own right and not
Mhm.
steered one direction or the other. So, so often we do put up these fucking walls where it's like, this is what I do. This is all. But the reality is like it's okay to have other interests. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to like other things. Um, a,
And it's okay
another
to let those things bleed in too, if it makes sense. Like, we
absolutely,
all
but
come from different music backgrounds, but we unite around, sludge and doom, but we all have, different places. Like, Kevin comes from, he loves jam bands and stuff like that. So that, like, some of those concepts and stuff leak into our music, but in a context that makes sense with what we're doing. So like we're not like aiming to be this one thing and being very strict about it. We have our Doomsday Profit sound, and we kind of let our individual and collective writing kind of guide what that sound looks like within reasonable, flexible boundaries. But we're not
Yeah.
trying to be like prescriptive and strict about how we're
sure.
sounding in that sense.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's got to serve the song, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
at the end of the day, that's the whole fucking point of the creative process. And it's,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
it's better to have shit like bleed in. And
Yeah.
I think the masses or I say the masses, the people, the consumer is more ready now than they ever have been to have like these mixed genre songs or artists,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I feel like you used to buy a punk album and it was just punk,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now what's the Turnstile album that's like got these fucking pop elements and some
Hmm.
DJ
It's
and
like
Hmm.
number one on independent radio right now.
yeah,
We're like
which
coming out
is
of the hardcore scene. It's wild.
it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I love that people are able to create whatever the fuck they want,
Yeah.
or
You know,
what is authentic to them.
we've talked about this a bunch. I feel like there's a lot of bands that do a really good job of playing within a very specific genre. Um, and I think sometimes it's easier to get attention that way, to say like, oh, this is the new stoner rock band. They're on the Doom charts. They're doing all these things. Um, but if it feels too much like it's just doing something that's been done before, um, you know, there's a pretty low ceiling on where that can go. Whereas I think if you're doing something that's really unique, and doesn't quite fit the mold, it's maybe a little bit harder to get those first steps. But then the sky's the limit. I was actually just talking to our friends in the band Valletta about that, and they're another band from the Raleigh area who I think are just incredible, and I have no idea how to concisely describe them. um, there's a little bit of like hardcore and like tragedy style, like melodic crusty elements, but then there's these really big guitar solos that sound like classic heavy metal, but then there's black metal elements as well.
To
And
like black and roll too. Yeah.
yeah, it's you know it sounds like them. They don't really sound
Yeah.
like anybody else. I mean, to me, there's, maybe a little bit like Velotak or some
Hmm.
other, there's other bands that have done like big sounding rock and roll meets extreme metal. Um, but yeah, they just don't really sound like, another dime a dozen band follow it coloring inside the lines. And I was talking to them because they're like, yeah, we don't really know how to describe ourselves. And, we've had this and that thrown around and none of it really seems to fit. And I was like, yeah, it makes the job of describing it tough, but I think
Hmm.
it's a good thing. Like at the end of the day,
Yeah,
as
especially when we
musicians,
have to compete with AI music generation that's building
I
up.
was
It's
just
just
gonna mention that band that landed on the
Velvet
Doom charts
Sundown or
last
whatever the
year.
fuck.
No, no, not that
Oh.
one. The one from last year. I forget what they were called, but
Oh,
there was a band
yeah.
that made the Doom charts. They had an album come out that was sort of like an occult rock, like one of those like, oh, it sounds like it was unearthed from the 70s. And then they came out with a big statement like, yeah, this was all fake. We programmed AI to generate the music. We
Hmm.
It was AI generated press photos with an AI generated music video. They did spend a lot of time like making everything consistent in what the AI output, but it was, you know, by numbers occult rock. And um, yeah, definitely had a lot of folks who had um, recommended that album, kind of like, oh, now I don't know what to do with this.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
uh,
fucking wild. I guess I don't pay enough attention to like a lot of the media that's out there
mhm.
doing shit. Everything that I see just comes to my fucking email, all the new music that I get, unless a friend is like, "Hey, you need to fucking listen to this."
Yeah,
So
Hmm.
uh, I'm glad that I didn't deal with any of the AI stuff. I know it's coming. I fucking know
Yeah.
it's
I'll see
here.
it soon.
It's here. I
I,
mean, it used to be. I mean, Spotify has kind of generated a reputation for this, where it started off they'd pay session musicians just for the initial music work and no licensing rights
to do
to,
like a royalty free ambient track.
yeah,
Or,
to start throwing into vibe playlists and like lo-fi beats and stuff like that. And then it's seemed to turn into they're using AI. But it used to kind of be relegated to shorter songs and instrumental songs. But the fact that we're starting to see songs with vocals and lyrics
yeah, what was
creeping
that band you were
in,
telling me about?
the Velvet Sundown,
Yeah,
that
that
one.
one.
Yeah, it's like it's on some like Vietnam War playlist, like protest song playlist or whatever,
Even though
amongst like
they've only existed
CCR.
for 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And they're 100% AI. There's like, oh, band is likely no, it's AI. You can tell. I mean, they don't have any sort of presence. That someone did an analysis of their monthly active listener number, how it's like a straight shoot up. So they've clearly paid for botting playlists and stuff like that. So it's here, and I mean this band that has existed for like less than a month has over like I think 500,000 listeners at this point.
Holy fuck.
And it's literally a derivative swill because it is pulling from that style of 60s 70s protest folk rockish stuff, and even it's like it's not dust in the wind, it's like
On the
to
wind.
dust on the
Dust
wind or
on the breeze.
dust, yeah, it's like it's very clearly, yeah, it broke my heart when I saw that the other day. I'm like, well, it's here quicker than I thought it was going to be. So I guess the way to get around this is to keep innovating quicker than the AI bots can
Well,
scrape and create.
yeah, the AI bots are gonna do that one thing, create a
Yep.
death metal band, and they'll play fucking death metal, and that's
Yep.
it. But and
Yep.
Hmm.
now, I feel like, are you guys familiar with the band Wake? R
Hmm.
W A
Yeah.
K
Oh,
E.
Oh yeah.
one of my favorite records of the year, hands down. I really enjoyed that interview that you had with them too.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
The Return of Magic is such a fantastic
So
album, dude.
good. Yeah,
So
it's
good.
if not my favorite, it's top five of the year for sure.
That's fucking cool. That's really cool to fucking hear that. I'm super excited for them to fucking. I don't know if it's out yet. I think they're coming to town.
Where are you based?
So I live in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh,
Awesome.
nice. I'm
S-
hoping they'll work their way to North Carolina.
Yeah,
I would love to see them play.
a little bit at a time. I just talked to a buddy of mine. He went to the Acid Bath show. It was Acid Bath, Weed
Ooh,
Eater, and Wake.
Hmm.
that's
And
a fucking lineup. Holy
oh,
shit.
dude, I was like, well, how were they? He's like, dude, it was so fucking good.
Yeah.
Send me some videos, please. Like, I
Yeah.
know you were hanging out. Like, what's up?
Yeah, I've
They've
heard their
always
live
been one
shows
of
are
those
incredible.
bands that like you just need the right combination of people to come up with what they come up with. Like
Yeah, for
Yeah.
there's
sure.
no obviously that everybody has influences and things that they're pulling from, so it's not like they're inventing new pitches, but
Hmm.
the way that they combine those things is so wholly just them doing it.
Yeah.
Nobody else
Yeah.
could imagine it, and that's
But
great. It's amazing.
yeah, but that is why, like you said, everyone writes, everyone brings something to the table.
Hmm.
Like, good, because then it's not one person going, and nothing against the one person, like I love Megadeth for what Megadeth is,
Hmm.
and numerous other bands that I won't mention, but
Mhm.
to have something where you can pull all these different influences. There's one that's super new to me. Actually, their interview, I just interviewed them, called "When the Deadbolt Breaks." It's the
Hmm.
same thing. I fucking love that band. Like it's so like you don't know how to fucking describe it. They've got sludge elements and all of these other fucking things, and you're like, oh, holy shit, what's going on here? This is cool as fuck.
Yeah. Well, metal anymore is, I mean, saying that you like a metal band doesn't really mean anything. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I'm going to need a little bit more than that because do they sound like Judas Priest or do they sound like Cannibal Corpse,
Right.
uh, or something in the middle? I have no idea. It's like saying I like rock music. Like that could mean anything.
Yeah.
I guess it has guitars. Seems like we can start there. Um, which is cool and interesting. As a fan, obviously you listen back to the decades before going from Sabbath and Budgie and Led Zeppelin into through the 80s and 90s and so forth, and seeing how it evolves and all the different things that it's taken on. And now I feel like it's our job, as contemporary musicians, to take all of that and take what we love and leave what we don't and make our own thing. But it almost feels like, how are you really going to create a new genre? We've already got 700 different hyphenates that you can apply to bands. And you know I don't want to just play black metal or doom metal. I don't want to just do what Saint Vitus did 40 years ago. um, I want to bring something else to it and make it my own. And hopefully, hopefully other people it'll resonate when they hear it and they'll recognize it as being something that is Doomsday Profit, even though we love Saint Vitus, we love Sabbath, we love Napalm Death, we love His Hero Is Gone, and all of those things are in the mix somewhere. There's a lot of Neil Young, and for me, there's a lot of surf rock because I love the Ventures and Dick Dale and Link Ray. And it's not, clearly we're not a surf band, but
But there's surf. I mean, you look at Drive, and in the chorus, there's a little bit of a. You couldn't say it's really surfy, but there's surf elements that are pulling into it. Even Terror Cycle, I think there's some surfy elements that, if
TerraCycle
you
definitely has some
dissect it.
surfy elements. It's all hidden after you guys came in and ran roughshod over my, my drippy reverb clean tone, uh, which is not on the song at all. But yeah, I mean, all those influences within heavy music, well outside heavy music, they come together, and when we do it well, hopefully it comes together in a way that feels natural and feels authentic,
Mhm.
but also feels different. It's not exactly the same thing you've already heard 1,000 times.
Yeah. That's it's so hard to do that, right? Like to write any style of fucking music without mixing genres where you sound completely fucking original. Because I got on my bike this morning and was listening to a band, and I'm not going to mention the name, but I'm like, Jesus Christ, if it was a different vocalist, I would swear this is the Doors.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I've heard this. I fucking grew up, these were my teenage years. I don't know how much acid I took listening to these fucking songs in my teenage years, but like let's let let's do something a little different. Let's
Yeah,
have some other influences in there, which is, you know, I think most people are ready to have something new in their lives. At least the people in the circles that I run in,
Hmm.
they want, of course, when you want a straight death metal, fucking you listen to a straight death metal band. But
Sure. I
yeah.
mean, that's how I am as a music consumer. And I've had a very long and deep connection with music since I was a little kid, and I've just been on this constant journey of trying to find that next new sound that I haven't heard before. And it's not that there aren't elements that I haven't heard before, but it's that combination of those things that I haven't heard in that way that's fresh to me. I'm constantly looking for my favorite record is the one that I haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
And so it really, so when I hear something that really stands out amongst everything else that I've listened to, it really catches my ear, and that's just my perpetual quest as a music listener.
Yeah. Mine too. And so let me ask you, where did it start for you? Like, do you remember that moment where you're like, oh, I've this is the path that I'm on forever?
I mean, my paths have changed, but like I think the definite marcation of when I kind of realized that music was something deeper was that first Audio Slave record as a kid, and that kind of that threw me into. I was like, wow, okay, music can mean something. Music is more than just something to put on and listen to. And then I went down the Chris Cornell rabbit hole and, went into grunge. And then from grunge and then in high school, classic rock. From classic rock, I had like an indie rock Elephant Six phase where I was into like Neutral Milk Hotel and Arcade Fire and all that stuff. And then I had an all country Americana phase where I went down the Wilco, Uncle Tupelo rabbit hole. Prog rock, I got really into Porcupine Tree and Opeth and Frank Zappa. And then when I met Bryan in college, Bryan got me into local music. We were interning at a record label together, and he hipped me on to a band called Red Collar, which is one of the best bands to come out of Durham, North Carolina. Just really great punk rock. And so I just fell in love with the local music scene in North Carolina, which at the time was incredibly, incredibly diverse. And that just kind of further expanded my horizons. And I did college radio all throughout um, my time there, and that also expanded my horizons and I think gave me the quest in that sense. And then I have a radio show on a community radio station called Global Garage where our whole thing is trying to find rock tangential music from all around the world. So it's been really interesting exploring how guitar-based music spread around the world as this one thing, a lot of Beatles and Elvis copycats, but took on that cultural DNA of the region that it existed in and formed into something completely different. Like you look at Tuareg and like desert rock or the desert blues like Tinari Wen and Mdu Mokhtar and stuff like that, where you see how it's evolved into something completely different. And I just absolutely have loved that exploration. So that's basically my music quest, and that if
That's,
that
you
was
know,
probably a much longer answer than you were looking for.
no, I really like that because, it honestly touches on a lot of fucking things that interest you and have interested you through the years.
Hmm.
And, so many people, especially in like the metal world, are like, when you talk to them, I only listen to this. But the
Hmm.
reality is like, I think I assume, 99% of them like other things too and listen to it, and they have that fear that, oh, I'm not cool because I like this. Like my wife is she likes hippie music and jam
Hmm.
bands and singer-songwriters,
Mhm.
and I get it. A lot of it is not my thing. I love singer-songwriters. Jam bands, just leave me all the fucked away out of it. Like, because that's so. Dave Matthews was playing. She loves Dave Matthews. He was playing Bourbon and Beyond, and she's like, "You said you'd never go to Dave with me. Will you go to this?" And I'm like, well, Tedeschi Trucks was playing, and I'm like, I'll fucking go because I love Susan Tedeschi. I think Derek Trucks is fucking great. And I say fuck all the way off with jam bands, but I love the Allman Brothers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like, so I'm like, I'll go. Well, she's coming later, and I'm hanging out with like one of her best friends and one of her best friend's friends, and we go watch this band, and I'm enthralled. I'm like, holy fuck. And I turned to her friend and I was like, they are fucking good. Who is this? She's like, you like this? Yeah. She's like, I mean, I like it, but I didn't think you would like it because I know you as the heavy metal guy. I'm like, no, yes, I love fucking heavy metal, but I just love good music. And
Mhm.
it was the Red Clay Strays.
Hmm.
Huh.
Like just blew me blew me away with their live show. Fantastic fucking live show.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
feel like if you love music,
yeah,
you kind of owe it to yourself to see what all's out there, right?
exactly.
Now, if you only love a certain genre or a certain vibe or a certain scene or whatever, that's fine. You
Hmm.
know, I'm not here to tell anybody how to live their life, but you know, on the like, how'd you get into music? One of my, you know, periods in my life when I was in college and Ryan was working at the radio station, I was, at a different school, a few towns over, and I was editing the arts and entertainment section of the student newspaper. And, I worked for a year as a writer and I was like, cool, I get free CDs. I got to hear all this different stuff. Um, and it was really exciting. And, pretty quickly was kind of like, oh, if there's anything loud or, punk or heavy metal, Bryan will take it.
Hmm.
But when I took charge, I said to all my writers, like, you don't get to be choosy about genres. You don't get to say you don't get to be a music writer if you only want to listen to indie rock. Like, you need to go explore, listen to free jazz, listen to country, listen to heavy metal. And every now and then, I'm going to give you something that I know you're not going to like to see if you can review it on its merits,
Hmm.
not based on I think this is cool, but is it accomplishing what it's trying to do? And same with movies. Great, go see the Oscar worthy drama. Those are great movies, or the um, big blockbuster. But also go watch some B movies. Go watch horror, watch comedy, see how it works as a genre. Um, it doesn't have to become your favorite thing, but maybe you'll find something you didn't expect.
Hmm.
And also, you'll be more well rounded, and you'll be better able to talk about the medium that you're writing about, with a more holistic view. Um, and I think for most folks, it was, they rose to the challenge and they enjoyed it, even if they didn't necessarily enjoy every record they heard. um, you know, they didn't turn into headbangers overnight. Um, but it was a chance to listen to something and be like, okay, cool, I get what this is about. There's different ways of operating. There's different expectations of a crowd at a show, depending on what you're seeing. I don't need to be afraid of a mosh pit. It's just a bunch of people running around. Or I remember going to a concert, going to a punk show with one of my writers, and he was mad that the headliner didn't play an encore, and I was like, no, they played a 30-minute set and got the hell off stage. It was perfect. But he'd just gone to indie rock shows where they play 45 minutes, then come out and play a 3-song encore, like as a matter of course. And this band was like, nope, we're just going to leave it all on stage. And when we're done, we're done. See you later. Um,
Yeah, I think when bands are known to do that, they come off and they come back and play an encore. It's not really a fucking encore.
No,
yeah.
It's part
no.
of the set because they fucking put it in there every fucking night. Like,
Hmm.
call it what it is, dude. Part of the set. We're gonna take a break, go do a line of Coke or drink a beer, whatever the fuck we're gonna do, and then we'll come back and finish our couple of songs.
Yeah. We all know what's going to happen. Oh, you put your bass down, but your amp is still on.
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
crew
yeah.
didn't come out and start taking shit
Yeah.
away. Like,
The
I
house
We
know
music
what's up.
hasn't come on. I wonder what's going to happen.
what I I think we're all in the band aligned on this is that we're not we don't plan encores, nor are we even at the place where we could get away with doing that if we wanted to. But if people want us to play another song, we want them to demand it from us. It did actually happen for the for the first time. We played it at Shuggy's in Charleston, and I had already put my bass down, turned off my amp, and went over to stand at the merch table. But the guy working the door came up on the microphone and just kind of berated us until
Yeah.
kindly berated
Yeah.
us until we got back and played another song, and the crowd was super into it. So that's the kind of encore that I would want, is just to be it
Yes.
demanded of us.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I've seen I I've seen it happen one time at a festival. Um, where Pallbearer played, and they were playing right before Corrosion of Conformity, and like they weren't playing last, but the crowd demanded an encore, and they're
Mhm.
like, we can't, like, next band's on, and COC was like, nope, go ahead, you earned it. And like then everybody in the room is, it's just electric when you have that real organic response instead of just like
Yeah.
going through the motions. And if it's not, you know yeah, I'm definitely a fan of shorter sets rather than longer sets, and when you're done, strike the stage as quick as you can. um, but but in those rare moments when it's right, like, yeah, then it's something special.
For me, I like a small bill,
Yeah.
like two, three bands, perfect.
Yeah,
Four, you're kind of pushing my limits. Five, I'm either coming late or I'm leaving early.
yeah.
Like,
I
I feel
think a
like at
lot of that
5, call it
depends
a festival.
on the genre though too. Like, you go see hardcore and grindcore bands, there's 5 or 6 bands on the bill, but you're still out of there in 2 hours because
yeah,
they're all sharing backline and playing 15 minutes. It's perfect. Like,
yeah, with 37 songs in those 15 minutes. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, you get a
Yep.
grindcore band come out with 3 sheets of set list, and you're like, oh man, and they're done in 10 minutes. Like,
yeah, fucking love it, dude. Oh, King Parrot is coming back to the fucking States. I cannot
are
fucking
you
wait.
seeing them with Weed Eater on this run coming up?
So I'm not. They're only doing a couple of dates with Weed
Yeah.
Eater. I thought for sure that we were gonna get that because I've been pushing. I've actually been chatting with KP's booking agent about putting a show on here, like in between a couple of the
Mhm.
like Pantera and Amon Amarth dates. I'm like, dude, it would be fucking perfect right here. And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, dude, come on, I'll fucking make this happen. But so I think Weed Eater's playing. We have a bar here called Mag Bar.
Mhm.
It's Magnolia Bar and Grill, and what they're right now, they just started Metal Mondays. I
Nice.
that probably like 3 or 4 months ago. It came from another bar in town, and dude, Metal Mondays are off the fucking chain. But so anyway, Weed Eater is playing one of the I don't think they're playing a Metal Monday, but they are playing a show at Magbar, and it, dude, that place only holds like 100 people. If you're
That's
fucking
awesome.
like nuts to butt, you're like, what the fuck? So it's
That's
gonna be
awesome.
insane. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that'll be a
love
blast.
those small room, like on the floor DIY. Like that's where I think most at home sometimes when we're playing. I mean, we've had really fun shows on, nice big fancy stages, but there's something about just getting on the floor with a questionable PA and just going to town
Well, I think
with
also we've
everyone.
been a lot of the rooms that we've played like that have been either like record stores
Yeah.
or um, arcades or beer halls or something like that, where it's like we'd be here anyway.
Yeah.
Or it's a bar like Shuggies or Monstercade or The Odd, where they're just like, these few bar. I feel like every town has the one bar that's like the weirdo bar, for lack of a better term. Like, they've got horror movies on the TV. There's all kinds of like posters from shows or movies or like lowbrow art or whatever. It has a very DIY mentality. Like, Shuggies is all horror movie and punk rock posters and tiki drinks. They call themselves a heavy metal tiki bar. It holds like 60 people maybe.
fuck yeah.
Um,
It is
and
awesome.
it's awesome. And Monstercade in Winston Salem is another room that's like, I think,
Mhm.
75 capacity. They have a tiny little stage. Um, Everything there. They have like a Frankenstein mural that they got done on one wall. They have like a Bigfoot print on display, and everybody there is super cool. And like, you can tell it's just like that's where everybody who is into just like cool, interesting stuff wants to be. And The Odd in Asheville, same way. Like, their calendar's full of drag shows and like karaoke and metal bands, and they have a little oddities collection. Um, on display, and you walk into those places and it's like a come as you are, super casual vibes, small stage, play as loud as you want, like everybody's having a good time, and there's usually a bit of a built-in crowd there too, because it's the type of place that's like built to be like like draw people who are into cool, weird, interesting stuff like moths to a flame. Like it's just
Hmm.
set
Yeah.
up right.
We've got three places like that here. So Magbar being one of them, right? The Metal Mondays are always
Mhm.
off the chain. Like I think the smallest crowd I saw in there, and like I said, your capacity really is like 85 in that room. Smallest crowd I saw for a Metal Monday has been like 40.
Wow,
Uh,
Wow.
Often I count 60 to 80 people in there.
that's
Like,
incredible.
yeah, it's great. Then we've got Planet of the Tapes, which so
I
so
love that.
Planet of the Tapes, like when you play, they have a projector, they put movies on behind you, and
Sick.
you choose the movie. Like I went to a show there a couple weeks ago and they played fucking Jaws.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
fuck yeah, that's cool. They've had Star Wars. It's like, I don't know, whatever you want to watch, they fucking do. It's super cool. And it's tiny. It's probably the same thing, 50, 60 people.
Yeah,
Um,
We've played, I think, at least two shows with Mandy playing in the
yeah.
background. Usually like the last half of or the last bit of Mandy during the
Yeah.
chainsaw fight.
I think
Love
Boone
that.
Saloon actually like bought it on demand
Did
at
they?
our request. Yeah,
Fuck yeah. That shit's cool.
yeah.
And I'll tell you, my favorite venue here is one called Portal. So Portal is not just like a venue, it is an entire experience. So they have the venue side and cap there is like 500 or something.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Like it's a good size room. The green room for the band, all that good shit. Well, then like behind it is like the art portal part.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So they do like art installations. I think the one right now is it's all like show posters from shows throughout the decades here in Louisville. Uh, then there's a record store, a tattoo shop, a fucking trading card game place. I don't think Shibari is there anymore, but then there's like also like a bookstore and some it's dude, that space is so fucking dope.
That's awesome.
Like I
Yeah,
want that place to sell out every fucking night. Like, come on.
yeah. No, that.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
I
starting
mean,
to wish I lived a little closer to Louisville.
Yeah,
I know, right?
I can help you with that.
We'll we're having our starting our talks for what we're gonna do next year. Starting tonight, actually. So, um, yeah, Louisville's definitely on the radar.
Yeah,
Hell
for
yeah.
sure.
Pay attention to Lexington too.
Hmm.
So are you guys
Mm-hmm.
familiar with Crop?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, are they the ones that are really involved with legalized Lex? Is that?
Yeah, Braun,
Hmm.
it is essentially Braun's gig. Him
Mm-hmm.
and I think Josh Flowers from Swamp Hawk like
Mm.
partner on that, and it's fuck legalized lax has been awesome so far.
Yeah, it's been
Amazing.
cool to see that
Yeah.
festival like grow year over year. We've had a couple starting up in North Carolina. Our friends in Cosmic Reaper put on Seismic Summer at the Milestone for the past few years, and that keeps going. And then this year we've got Asheville Doomed and
Asheville Doomed
Stoned,
and Stoned, yeah.
which should be we're really excited about. That's going to be a fun day.
Yeah, it's gonna be super fun.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have like Lung Burners on that fucking bill, and I love that band. I fucking absolutely love those dudes.
Yeah, we're actually playing with them again in Tampa in
Hmm.
November as well. I think they're on the same day as us.
Tampa Doom and Gloom.
Oh yeah, I think when the Deadbolt Breaks is playing that show.
That
Oh,
sounds right. I have to check the lineup because there's a lot of bands playing that over the 2 days.
Yeah,
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, lots of good festivals coming up, which is fun. I started making a list. And I'm just kind of like my mind's a little bit blown at how many festivals are showing up that are really like pretty DIY efforts, but
Yeah.
doing some pretty incredible things and getting some really strong lineups.
Well, dude, in this style of music, I think almost everything, as far as festivals go is DIY. I mean, they've Grand Rapids Doom is fucking happening. We went to Planet Desert Rock Weekend this fucking year, and
Nice.
that was a lot of fucking fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard really good things coming out of
Oh yeah, that's fucking super cool. And then you've got, Ripple Fest, which is
that.
like
Hmm.
doing all the
Hmm.
shit. I feel like they like grew and are just continued to fucking explode. Um Blood of the Earth is playing Tampa also.
Hmm.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That Tampa festival is going to be really strong. I think
Yeah, we're really stoked for that.
it's our first time going down that far south, and
Hmm.
Florida is um, it's it's not always the easiest to get to, especially when you get like past the Panhandle. Um, just because you kind of go down and then you go right back up the same way. It's hard
Yes.
to make a loop. Um, but yeah, it was definitely one of those things. When they asked, we just jumped on it right away. Like, yes, 100%. This
I'm
is
totally
we're
like
stoked.
looking up to see all the fucking bands on Doom and Gloom.
Yeah, they got Basque headlining and
Hmm.
Woe, which also means like there's a big stretch in genres from Basque doing their kind of like heavy psych with a lot of Americana influence, and then Woe doing some straight up gnarly black metal.
There's a lot of North Carolina representation.
That there
We
is.
got Calgon,
Sunbearer.
Skull Servant, Sunbearer. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, Blood of the Earth. Yeah. You guys fucking Hollow Leg and Florist too, which will be
Hmm.
fucking dope. Um, I love both those fucking bands. I gotta get back to the fucking show. I'm like looking at the flyer going, man, how the fuck do I make that?
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Hey,
I'm
go.
sure. I'm sure all those folks are going to be happy that we spent this much time talking about how great
Yeah.
Tampa Doom and Gloom Volume 2 is going to be November 1st and 2nd at Deviant Libation in Tampa, Florida.
God, that fucking what a terrible couple of dates. I like that I can't do that. I absolutely can't. I'm going to fucking my wife and I did Headbangers Boat last year for the first time and
Okay.
literally got off and we're like, we're gonna do this shit again. So we booked it and we leave on Halloween.
Well, maybe you'll hear us from
Yeah, from the
from
ocean.
Tampa.
I have my buddy Jeff like, dude, just FaceTime me. I'll fucking keep it playing while I'm watching these other bands play
Yeah,
too.
who's playing on the boat this year?
Um, of course, Lamb of God, I think Clutch, Kubla Khan, Gideon. I'll be honest with you, I fucking don't remember. I've been looking at all of these other
Oh yeah.
festivals,
Mhm.
like, so I'm
It's
not even in like headbanger boat mode. I've got a like a post festival. It's called Post Fest coming up
mhm.
here in a couple of weeks that I'm really excited for in Indianapolis with like Converge headlines one night and Cave In actually just dropped because one of the dudes hurt himself.
Oh
Ooh,
no.
But they've got Pianos Become the Teeth playing two nights now, which is cool.
Yeah.
sick.
Um, dude, it's a fucking amazing bill. Post Fest is if you're into to like
Oh
post
yeah.
metal and post rock, like
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a
that's
good
where it's
one.
at.
I was looking at Caterwall up in, I think it's in Minnesota. Our Wayland Storms has played that a couple times. It's more of like a noise rock festival. I think they had Bronson Arm, and I think they had iFlies this year, and all kinds of good stuff. There's just like all over the country. There's all these
Hmm.
festivals that are just it's great too. I mean, it's awesome to be able to kind of like get your weekend crash course and just hear a bunch of new bands and stuff. It's almost like you always want the bands that you know and love to show up for the festivals, but sometimes it's even better. Like that's where you find the bands that just completely surprise you.
Oh
You're like, I
yeah, for sure.
had no idea this was happening. We have Hopscotch in Raleigh, um, which is big all cross genres in September, and that's one. It's in like 5 or 6 different clubs around town, and all going on at once. So you just end up walking around downtown for 3 nights, just seeing whatever strikes your fancy. And I've seen some really incredible stuff at that festival.
Back in the 90s, Wilmington had one called We Fest. It was the Wilmington Exchange Festival.
Hmm.
And they would do it was multiple venues, and I think if I remember right, they had a church at one point where fucking people could crash at. So
Oh
you'd
Mm.
like
wow,
fly in, go crash at the church, go to the fucking bars, see the shows, go back, crash at the church. Like, um,
that's awesome. And then it's like a big rock and roll slumber party for everybody.
yeah, well, that's what we need to fucking do. That's a great idea. Um, Holler of Doom
Mm.
is actually the very next festival. It's the same weekend as Asheville Doomed and Stoned.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it was coming up pretty soon. Yeah.
Other sides of the mountains, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know about Asheville Doomed and Stoned, but like Holler of Doom essentially is it's 2 days or 2 nights, and you $30 a day, I think is what it costs. And you go and you fucking camp, and the stage is fucking right there. And like I think last year they had like 4 in the morning, the bunch of different musicians got up on stage and just started fucking playing. Like, oh,
That's awesome.
I've
Kind
heard
of
nothing
like
but good things
old
about
school
it.
Bonnaroo
Yeah.
legends, with like the all night jams and stuff. Only doomier.
only Doomier. Yeah, for sure. God, how long's the like I when how long has Bonnaroo been going on? I feel like it's been going on for 25 years or
Something
something.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's got to be
decades
something
at
like
this
that.
point. Um,
Holy fuck.
but yeah, I mean, I remember hearing about it when it was all jam bands, but it was like you go, you camp, they play music all night. It's sort of like it. There's the official shows, but then it doesn't really stop. Like they always have something going on. There's always, you know, you know, it's hard to make it happen, but it's really cool when you have a festival that the musicians are hanging around, at least for the full day that they're playing and seeing the other
Yeah.
bands and stuff. Um, Hopscotch, like Thurston Moore played one year, and so like walking around downtown and being like, oh, there's Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth just hanging out.
Didn't you sneak him into
I
a
didn't sneak. I knew the door guy and helped him get
Gotcha.
into a show. Yes, because he didn't have an official pass.
It was an official, unofficial pass. I mean,
Yeah, there
those
you go.
but those happen so fucking much. That's one thing that I don't miss about like doing the whole festival thing at a higher level is the fucking band show up and it's like, okay, you got, the band plus your like 5 guest list or whatever. And they're like, but we have 10 people, 10 extra. Like,
Mhm.
fucking sorry?
Yeah,
Whatever.
they can stay in the van. Yeah.
No, they
No.
can't because the fucking van comes behind the gates.
Oh yeah.
Like, sorry, I fucking hate it for you. That's, if there's one thing that I could, say to bands, like, don't be that band. If they say your guest list is this big, don't make
Hmm.
it this big,
Yeah.
please.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
If
people
they're
fucking
really
hate
your
that.
friend, they won't ask to be on the guest list.
Yep.
100%. They will fucking pay. Um, I get offered often to, "Hey, dude, I'll get you on the guest list." I'm like, no, dude, I'll pay.
Yeah,
Like
same.
I go to shows. I literally go to shows at one place for free. And if I'm going to go to the show, I still buy a fucking ticket. Like last show I went to, maybe not the last one of the last couple, I bought my max amount of tickets and I fucking handed them out to people like, come to the show.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Talking to the owner. I'm like, oh, he's like, oh, like, did you buy tickets? I'm like, yeah, dude, I bought as many as I could and I fucking passed them out. He said, really? I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I love this place. I want it to fucking keep going. Like,
Hell yeah. Respect.
Yeah.
he's like,
I
all right.
the guest list has been a a very crucial tool for me, especially when I was writing and going to as many shows and seeing as many bands as I could. Um, and it's always a treat, when the offer's there.
Hmm.
But you don't build a scene on guest lists.
No.
Um, I think, obviously if somebody's working, if they're taking photos or doing a review or something, um, big difference. But yeah, I mean, it. We always joke that the music scene is the same $20 bill being passed around among 50 people, but um, that it matters. It really does. Make it make it possible even for bands on a hobby level to make it feasible to go play out of town and go record and do the thing because it's all
Yeah.
expensive and you do it for the love. But I think a lot of those bands are like, oh, I don't care about the money. As soon as you're like $500 in the hole, it's like, well,
Yeah.
I care a little bit.
Well, and even more, like you get out there to fucking go out of town, and all of a sudden your transmission goes out, and it's like,
Hmm.
oh fuck,
Yeah,
what's that? A three, four, $5,000 fix? Like, oh shit.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
That shit gets expensive. So
Hmm.
all of you out there, buy merch, support your bands, buy tickets to the show, even if you get in free, buy a fucking ticket. Like that's that's the that's the big thing. Support the music. Okay, Ryan and Bryan, thank you both so much. I've had a lot of fun chatting with you guys.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Thanks
Likewise,
for having us on.
Hell yeah. Now I've got to
really
go listen
appreciate
to
it.
the album, and we'll have to do this again here in a couple months. Like,
Sure.
do some more. We'll do it in September before the release.
Yeah,
Sure. Let's do
Hell
it.
yeah.
The
Hell,
official
the
release.
the,
official
the
release.
official release on all of the other things.
Yes.
Um, seriously, man, I fucking appreciate you guys so much. I love the fucking music. I honestly can't wait to go listen to the whole fucking album now.
Good.
Hell
I'm
yeah.
I'm glad, and thank you so much for
Yeah.
having us. We really appreciate it, and yeah, it's great talking. And
Yeah.
hopefully we'll make it out your way sooner than later.
Hell yeah. Well, if you guys need help like with shows or anything, just hit me up and I'll fucking do what I can to get you connected.
We sure
Much
will.
appreciated.
Hell yeah. Have a nice night,
Cheers.
guys.
Take
You too.
care.
Take
See
care.
ya.